let's get started. So for example, let's go to tween introduction. As you can see, we first need to create a tween, and then what we need to do, we need to set a property and we need to get the object, what kind of object we are setting the property on, and what property we are going to change, and what is the final value of the property, and how much duration it should take to change the property. So for example, I want to change this position dot x of this star. So if I want to uh, run this, okay, for example, let's run this. You can see this position dot x is changed from, so this is the sprite 2D. We change up the position dot x, and it went from the current position to 100 in 1 second. For example, if I want to do this in 0.6 second, you can see I can increase the duration, and that's how we can change position dot y. We can change the scale, we can also change the alpha, and we can also rotate the object. So this is just the basic tween introduction. So let's get code. Okay, so for example, we have a very basic character here, so let's go and add a script here. So I'm going to add a script. So in this script, so let's get the sprite 2D here first. I'm going to use the ready function, and let's use this for now. And now we need to create a tween here. So let's create a tween is equals to create tween, and you can see there is a inbuilt function for the tween as well. And now what we need to do is we need to get the tween and we need to apply the tween property. So you can see there are multiple methods that we can use in tween, but we need to use the tween property. And now we need to pass which object we want to apply the tween. So I'm going to pass sprite 2D, and what kind of property I want to change. So let's start with changing the property of tween. So I'm going to change the scale. Okay, so let's do the scale, and instead of setting up the scale x and y, I'm going to use the vector method. So which is basically I'm going to change this from let's say this is initially this scale will be, you can see here 1 and 1. So we can change this, so we can change this 1.2 comma 0.2. So what this will do, it will basically elongate the sprite, and how much duration we want. So let me do this for 5 seconds, so we will be able to see the animation. So let's run the scene. So now you can see the sprite is going to be elongate or scaled in 5 seconds. Now what will happen if I change this duration to 0.5, which is less than 1 second? So you can see it just happened so fast. And now what we can do is we can also apply multiple property like this. So for example, I can also do the scaling in y direction. So we can just put this as 1.2, and now we can also reset the scale. So for that, let's go and do this. We can also do this, something like this. And now if I run this, you should be able to see, you can see it elongates and it gets reset. That's it, guys. So let me just add a button so we will be able to play animation. Okay, and we will just use this play. Let's set this here. And now what we need to do is we basically need to add a signal here. So let's add a signal. So we are going to add the signal on button pressed, and I'm going to use this tween here. And we can just remove this. So now if I run this, okay, not this, we can just run this. So you can see we got this, right? So now the next thing is sequences. So we can basically add each of these sequences. So we can add one instruction, one tween animation, one tween animation. So we can add multiple tween animation, and we can also, so for example, we have changing the position first, then rotation, and then scale. So if I do this, if I, sorry, not this, if I run this, you can see it basically go from the position, rotation, and scale. Now if I change the rotation first, you can see it will rotate, then change the position, and then it will change the scale. Now if we go here, you can see there are multiple graphs that we can use. So for example, you can see we can actually set what kind of animation you want. So for the linear, so you can see the translinear graph. So this is the linear. Basically each second the position will change from each value. So this is a pretty simple linear graph. So if I run this, you can see it's a very simple linear graph. Now what will happen if I do sine, you can see it will change the value from slow to fast. So it will go from slow and then fast. This is squint, so very slow, then very fast. So you can see the quad here, which is very slow, and a little bit of ease here. Quad, exponents, cubic graph, circular, back. So you can actually see this is the elastic. You can see the elasticity graph here, bounce, and then spring. So that's a pretty easy way you can do. For example, we can also change the scale here, you can see, and yeah, that's it. Now let's go to next. As you can see here that we can also use the tweens to create a very simple spawning animation. So for example, with tween we can create something like this, and for the without tween it will look like this. So we can use with tween something like this. So how we can do that? So first we will basically create a spawn function, and we will basically change the alpha of the sprites. And if you go here, you can see there is a property called self modulate. So if you can take this property, you can see we can basically reduce the alpha to 0 and then spawn. Changing the modulation to 1, from 0 to 1, and in 0.3 seconds. And it will also running the parallel tween, which is basically changing the scale of y to 1. You can see, so this is the basic thing. So in this function ready, we will set the modulation. So what we will do, we will basically get the sprite 2d dot modulate or self modulate dot a, and we will set this to 0.0. And now by using tweens, so we can just do tween dot tween property, and we will choose the sprite to the object. And what property we need to modulate, we need to modulate the self modulate property, and then we can just directly set the alpha. Okay, so make sure you need to self modulate and the alpha. So if you click on modulate, you can see you can make everything change here. You can do self modulate dot r, self modulate dot g, b, I, a. So we are going to change the alpha, so we need to add colons and a. So this will basically modulate the alpha of the sprite, and we will set the this to 0.3. So I am just copying this, and if you want to run the tweens in parallel, what you need to do is you need to add a parallel function. So you can see what it does, it basically run parallelly with this tween. And now what we need to do is we need to basically change the scale and y, and we need to set this to y to 0 as well. So we can just do this like scale, and we can just set this the scale dot y to 0. Now let's run the scene and let's see what will happen. So we can set the ease and trans, so we can just directly do that as well. So we can go here, tween dot set ease, and what type of ease you want. So we are going to use ease out dot set trans. Trans means transform basically, or basically the transition.